Every week, moviegoers are polled by a company called CinemaScore to see how they like the new movies that are in theaters. Their opinions are averaged out, and the film is assigned a letter grade. If the movie scores in the A range, it will likely prove to be at least a decent-sized hit. Movies in the B range usually do mediocre business, although there have been plenty of hits that have scored this way too. It might just mean that the movie inspires strong feelings, some people loving it and others not. But only 22 films have ever gotten an F rating. And a D rating. Well, that's widely considered the kiss of death for your movie at the box office, with Joker Folie à Deux recently scoring a dreaded D. The only movie that ever scored lower than that has ever grossed $100 million, is 2001's Vanilla Sky. Haha, but wait a second, you might be asking yourself, doesn't everyone love that movie? Nowadays, yes, they mostly do, with many choosing it as one of Tom Cruise's best movies. However, during the holiday season of 2001, a time I remember well, which was especially fraught coming just months after the devastating 9/11 attacks, audiences wanted escapism when they went to the movies, not a deep, probing journey into one man's psyche, even if it happened to star Tom Cruise. Thus, when they turned out to see Vanilla Sky, expecting an upbeat Tom Cruise movie in the vein of Jerry Maguire, they revolted, only for those same people to help turn it into a major cult hit once it hit DVD and eventually came to be regarded as a classic.
I was your only friend.
You have revealed yourself to me.
So Vanilla Sky is a remake of a Spanish film called Abre los Ojos, which translates to Open Your Eyes, and happened to be the toast of the 1998 Sundance Film Festival. Tom Cruise was there that year and saw the film, optioning the remake rights with his producing partner at the time, Paula Wagner. Cruise's career was at an interesting point. The star was absent from screens in 1997 and 1998, with him spending 15 months shooting Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, which is a product he devoted himself to so entirely, he didn't take any work for about 2 years, despite arguably being at the peak of his fame. When he returned to screens, it was in an Gantz-type supporting role in Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia. He needed a big, juicy hit, and well, he got that with the action spectacle of Mission Impossible 2, quickly re-establishing his box office dominance. And soon again, he was arguably the world's biggest movie star. At the same time, he'd struck up an amazing creative partnership with writer-director Cameron Crowe on their smash hit Jerry Maguire. In the wake of that movie's success, Crowe was able to get his passion project, Almost Famous, financed by Steven Spielberg's DreamWorks SKG. Despite critical raves and being a masterpiece, in my opinion, the movie was surprisingly unsuccessful at the box office, earning just over $30 million in North America, which was only about half of the $60 million the movie cost to make.
$700.
Enter Tom Cruise, who was keen to reunite with Crowe on a remake of Open Your Eyes, inviting him over to his house to watch the original film. Sensing its potential, Crowe, a true auteur, would not only direct the movie, but also write its screenplay, which would closely be patterned on the original. When asked why he'd do a remake, Crowe, in a perceptive moment, compared what he was doing to a band covering another band's song. Rather than depart from the material too drastically, Crowe opted to make this a rather faithful remake, with certain shots in the film being direct adaptations, such as the famous opening where Cruise's character runs through an abandoned Times Square, being a direct riff on a scene in the original where the lead character runs through an abandoned Madrid. Crowe would even go further than that. When casting the movie, he opted to have star Penelope Cruz reprise her role as the lead love interest, a dynamic young woman named Sophia. The film would mostly follow the story beats of the original, with Cruz playing David Ames, a privileged, handsome playboy who owns a Condé Nast-style publishing empire. And in fact, Ames Publishing was actually shot at the famous Condé Nast headquarters in New York City. Ames busies himself with a string of affairs, but one day finds himself beguiled by a woman dating his best friend. Yet, before they can consummate their burgeoning love affair, Ames winds up in a disfiguring car accident caused by a spurned lover, Cameron Diaz's Julie Gianni. This leaves him horribly scarred until a surreal operation is able to somehow cure his appearance. Yet, while outwardly cured, Ames starts to seemingly go insane, having a hard time separating what's real and what's not, with a film framed by his prison confessions to a psychiatrist played by Kurt Russell. While this is similar to the original, Crowe would imbue the film with his own perspective, with him turning the movie into somewhat of a pastiche of American pop culture from the 60s and 70s, which would have been the eras where our hero, played by Cruise, came of age. And it all influences the chunks of the movie that we learn late in the film that are supposed to be simulation. Likewise, the impeccably crafted soundtrack is a serious selection of one banger after another, including everything from the Beach Boys to the Chemical Brothers to Radiohead, and an original song by Paul McCartney, plus Sigur Rós, whose guitarist, Jonesy, would later become Cameron Crowe's regular composer after he split with his wife, Nancy Wilson of Heart, who composes the terrific score for this. Now, one of the reasons the movie strikes a chord with audiences more now than it arguably did in 2001 might be that Tom Cruise means something a little different to modern audiences than he did back then. Cruise is one of those stars who seem to emerge fully formed, but throughout the 80s and 90s, he was always, above all things, a romantic lead and kind of the all-American ideal of the perfect man, a thing which likely made his casting in such a bizarre, surreal movie like this kind of tough to swallow for audiences at the time.
Well, what the hell happened?
Well, I'd say he's still a gigantic star. We idolize him less now, with him having had his ups and downs throughout his career, which came to a head in the 2004-2005 period, where his Scientology advocacy became increasingly controversial. He was able to bounce back, but notably outside of his reteaming with Cameron Diaz in Night and Day, he never again played a real romantic lead in a love story, with him focusing mostly on action films, a genre he almost never toyed with during his heyday.
I need you to trust me. One last time.
All this actually makes Vanilla Sky play a little better than it might have back in 2001, where in the wake of 9/11, audiences just wanted escapism. Yet, the film, in my opinion, is something of a masterpiece, and Cruise delivers the performance of a lifetime as the spoiled but sympathetic Ames. Again, it's one of those parts that only a guy like Cruise can really play, as he has your sympathy no matter what. Hollywood has never had a romantic lead like him before or since, and guys like Jake Gyllenhaal or Chris Evans sometimes try to make old-school Tom Cruise-style movies like the former's Love and Other Drugs and the latter's Pain Hustlers. In these movies, they play largely unsympathetic characters you're nonetheless supposed to root for, and even like. But you know what? They can't pull it off. Cruise could have. Heck, he made you love Frank T.J. Mackey in Magnolia, and he's a rabid misogynist. Cruise is Cruise, and hey, there's nobody else quite like him.
Respect the cock.
What's also interesting about Vanilla Sky is how lavish it is for a psychological thriller. There's absolutely no way an actor nowadays would have the kind of clout that Cruise wielded 20 years ago, with him not only being able to shoot at Condé Nast, but also arranging for Times Square to be shut down and abandoned so they could film the famous sequence where he runs through an abandoned New York City. That ain't CGI. That's Tom Cruise, baby. He even gets Steven Spielberg, his buddy at the time, to show up as himself in a party sequence. Spielberg later cast Cameron Crowe himself in a cameo in Minority Report as a little quid pro quo. The movie also allowed Crowe to reunite some of his almost famous cast, with Jason Lee and Noah Taylor having prominent roles.
We'll hang soon. And bring your mask if you want. I'm getting used to it.
Before we continue with our video, if you love JoBlo and want to support us directly, click the store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our latest collection of fresh new designs in any size you need. It's good stuff, folks. Go get you some.
The movie also gave Tilda Swinton one of her first big parts in an American movie, while Michael Shannon has a small role which is bigger in the alternate director's cut, which has since been released on Blu-ray. While audiences and critics seemingly didn't respond to Vanilla Sky at the time, Cameron Diaz's performance as the unhinged Julie Gianni was highly acclaimed, with her earning several big award nominations, including nods in the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice Awards.
Stop the car! Don't you know that when you sleep with someone, your body makes a promise whether you do or not?
Many attributed the film's surprising climb to $100 million at the box office as further proof of Cruise's undeniable star power at the time. But even before it left theaters, it had started to develop a bit of a cult. Perhaps the film's biggest fan was a surprise, with the director of the original Open Your Eyes, Alejandro Amenabar, being a noted fan of the film, saying, "When I learned quite some time ago that Cameron Crowe was going to write and direct the film based on Open Your Eyes with Tom Cruise in the leading role, I felt honored. Now that I've seen Vanilla Sky, I couldn't be more proud. Cameron has all my respect and admiration. Respect for having plumbed the deepest meanings of the work. Admiration for having sought new viewpoints and a fresh approach to the mise-en-scène, giving the film his own unmistakable touch. Vanilla Sky is as true to the original spirit as it is irreverent towards its form, and that makes it a courageous, innovative work. I think I can say that for me, projects like this are two very special brothers. They have the same concerns, but their personalities are quite different. In other words, they sing the same song, but with quite different voices. One likes opera, and the other likes rock and roll. And I have to say, Vanilla Sky is rock and roll, baby.
I am Frank, and Frank must go.